Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Stroll, as your website on the Sustainable Trails Coalition says that while you oppose a blanket ban on bikes in wilderness, you also oppose a blanket permit.
Yes.
So so what qualities of the wilderness area that you believe should not permit access to bicycles?
Well, there are a number of areas. We think that areas that are heavily used, like, for example, the John Muir Trail in California in the summer, and I've backpacked in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. There may be trails there as well, heavily used. The potential for conflict is greater. And so there is a panoply of federal regulations that will continue, if H.R. 1349 passes, will continue to allow the local land managers to regulate the use of bicycles just as they do every other form of recreational activity.
So part of the interest in bicycling in the wilderness area seems to be with the, I guess invention may not be the right word, but it's really the mountain biking, the trail bikes, which have redefined bikes. They're not the bikes I grew up with.
Yes,
So,
or me.
okay, so tell me, what do you believe that the intent of the original Wilderness Act, which is really your purpose for your organization is to restore it back to the original intent of the Wilderness Act. Do you feel that that's actually being met because of the evolution of things like bicycles and other non-motorized powered vehicles of some sort?
I may not understand your question correctly, but it's our contention that it's the opposite. It's not being met because of the fact that forms of recreation have evolved, and the wilderness, the agency interpretations of the Wilderness Act are simply frozen in stone, and don't adapt to changes in not only recreation but the understanding of the management of recreation and the impacts of recreation. We're running wilderness as though people are basically confined to traveling by means that were available in biblical times, and that's it.
So that I'm clear on that, because as you know, we do evolve, but what happens to the trails themselves? Because if you want to restore it back to its, you recognize that the value of the Wilderness Act is keeping it in its pristine, primitive state.
Yes.
I think that's one of your goals. But when the bicycles themselves, the trail bikes and mountain bikes, have evolved so that it can transverse places that normal bicycles cannot, wouldn't you say that that's actually going against the original intent of your organization?
Okay, well, we stick to the trails. Mountain bikers are well known for doing this. It's hikers who cut switchbacks and go off the trail, and frankly, commercial profit-making pack trains do the same thing. Ranking Member Hanabusa, I have to tell you, I've been to a number of wilderness areas, and the problem is the opposite. Some of them are loved to death and beaten to death, mostly by commercial pack trains. But others that I've been to are hardly visited by anybody. And the trails have all but disappeared. They just grow over. I don't know if it's true in Hawaii, but in California, there are many wilderness trails that are basically abandoned. And we have marijuana growers moving into wilderness areas because there are no legitimate users there. Cyclists would not only help keep the trails open, both by volunteer work and by sheer use of the trails. We would chase out the marijuana growers, and we would frankly improve the setting for wilderness.
So when you say that you would improve the wilderness trails, are you saying that the bikes being used on these trails that may be overgrown would be a natural way of plowing through it?
Yes, exactly.
So, but you're not in any way advocating that somehow these trails are to be made safer by, for example, clearing of them?
No, not at all. That we would oppose that. Wilderness is supposed to be a natural setting where humans yield to the natural setting, not vice versa.
So how do you know whether that trail existed before and that all you're doing is making it accessible again, if it's overgrown?
Oh, you can look at a National Geographic Trails map, and you'll see the trails on there. In fact, I meant to bring a couple of them. You look at the map, it shows the trail, you go to the trailhead, and for example, in Representative Tipton's district, like around Creede, Colorado, the Weemanooch Wilderness, places like that, you go there, you go to the trailhead, and there is no trail there. That's how you know. It's just gone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.